Okay, so hello and welcome back. So basically in this video we want to start the basically physics. We want to start physics class 11. Basically physics starts from class 11, and there is physics class 11 part 1, which is basically one book. There is physics class 11 part 2, which is basically another book. There are two books in class 11, and there is physics class 12. There is physics class 12 part 1, and there is physics class 12 part 2. And basically the books that I'm going to use in this whole series of videos is basically the books that you can get from here. So if you go to NCERT.nic.in, this is the National Council of Educational Research and Training of India. And you can go, for example, you can go to class, for example, this is class 10, and in class 10 you can see that there is science, there is still no physics there. If you go to class 11, you see that there is all of these subjects that they do in high school, and there is physics in there. There is physics in there. Where is physics? There is the physics in there, and then there is part 1 and part 2. So then, for example, you can go for part 1 and click go, and you will get the book over here. Of course, but I've chosen this book for a couple of reasons. First of all, if you learn physics based on this system, which is basically 4 books as we discussed here, if you learn physics based on this system, it's going to be a fairly extensive knowledge of physics that you will get. And basically you know that the education system of India is famous for their mathematics, and it's famous for, of course, the physics books is a good book. There is I saw no problem in there. And usually in these series of books you get a whole bunch of exercises at the end of each chapter, and you get to basically solve those examples. And there is and there are websites for example, there are websites like, for example, this website over here, that, for example, Tibari, for example, academy.com. So, for example, what they have done is that they have, for example, as you can see, class 7, class 8, class 9, class 10, and class 11. And for example, you see that they have basically, these are the solutions for all of the problems that you will find in the book. For example, if you go to physics part, and then, for example, this is NCERT book chapter 1, or notes chapter 1, tools for teacher, and so on and so forth. So this is the book that you can essentially find over here as well. This is the revision, there is no, I'm sorry, there chapter 1 of course is not a good example because chapter 1 has no examples. So go for physics, for example. Go for physics and you see there is chapter 2, for example. So in chapter 2 basically the book essentially starts, and you have book chapter 2, this is the book itself, and there is the answers physics part 1, NCERT exercises solution chapter 2, additional exercises chapter 2, and so on and so forth. So for example, if you click here, then it will give you these are the answers that you can find in the book as well. So this is the book itself, for example. And then for example, exercises solutions chapter 2, what is that? And these are, for example, the solutions that you can find in the book. So you basically get to solve those problems, and then if you have any problems, you can come back to these solutions and basically use them as some sort of help in order to help you solve the examples on your own, something like that. So that's basically that's basically two reasons. So one reason is that reason number 1 is that you will get an extensive knowledge of physics, and then number 2, there is the exercises that you get to do in the book. And of course the book is in agreement with the Indian education system. And if you have taken a look at I have already done a couple of videos. Related to mathematics, and of course we will talk about mathematics a little bit as well. The physics book is in agreement with the mathematics book. So if you basically need to have understood the mathematics behind, for example, all the way at least up to class 11, you need to have understood that as well. And if you have any problems with mathematics, you can probably go back and watch those videos related to mathematics and do your own homework and everything else, so that you understand your mathematics, and then you can come back over here to physics and basically start your journey in physics. And so that's basically that is basically that. There are of course many other types of physics books that you could choose if you want to learn physics for the first time, but usually the books on physics that you find are basically calculus based. And at this point in class 11, for example, calculus is introduced for the first time in chapter 13 of, for example, the mathematics book related to class 11, for example. And this book, for example, when you start with chapter 2, there is no calculus there, and you can start reading the book, and I suppose somewhere probably in the middle of the book you will have some calculus as well, but most probably it's not going to be very calculus heavy, because students in class 11 basically have only a very, very tiny chapter on calculus, and that's it for class 11. And then I suppose in class 12 calculus starts, and then the physics book related to class 12 will be a little bit basically calculus based. So for example, you could there is a book for example called Understanding Physics. Understanding Physics. Or there is another book which is basically some version of the very famous physics book by Halliday, Resnick, and so on and so forth. Resnick, Walker. So this is the book. So this is the physics book, and it's a it's a very it's called The Fundamentals of Physics. It's a book basically around 1,000 pages or so, and it teaches you essentially all the basic physics, classical physics, and even some modern physics as well. And it's been there since, I would say, time eternity. It's been there like for at least 30 years or so, 20-30 years or so. But the problem with this book, for example, is that it is calculus based, and if you don't understand calculus well, then you cannot start reading this book. You will not understand it. So that's basically it. Now, the book that we have here, is, for example, this is chapter 2. The book that we have here seems to be not very, for example, it doesn't seem to be a very I don't know, it doesn't seem to be a very well written book. Well, at least compared, for example, to this book has been there for at least 30 years, and it has been revised and revised and revised over and over again. But believe me that these books, if you read them properly, I have been reading, for example, the mathematics books from the same system, and if you read them properly and if you pay attention to the book, they will teach you a lot of the subjects that they discuss. For example, if you read the book related to mathematics, I had to make a solid foundation for mathematics, and I started reading mathematics by the same system from class 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and right now I'm kind of at the end of the class 11. And if you do that, you will actually learn a whole lot of mathematics. You will have a very, very solid foundation of mathematics. And the same thing, of course, happens if you read the physics book, and so on and so forth. So now what I want to do, I will go through this book. I have no idea how I'm going to do it because I'm reading this book for the first time. I mean, depending on what we are doing, then we will have the right strategy to understand the concept and understand the text, and then we will keep going. It's not a whole lot of physics. It's just 4 books probably, and that's basically it. And then we will have, and then once this will be a good foundation for your physics. So I hope that you will enjoy studying physics with me, and I will see you in the next video.